Hi, welcome back, and thank you to all the new subscribers that have joined us in the past couple of weeks. Today I thought we'd pick up where we left off when we were looking a little bit at how Dionysus starts to make his way down into the underworld. So last time we had a little look at Dionysus's consultation with Heracles and how he puts on this heroic disguise to get into the underworld unsuspected. Dionysus expects that when he gets to the underworld dressed as Heracles, he will have a warm reception, and today we're going to see that that's not really quite the case. So, on his way down into the underworld, we have a few different jokes coming through before we meet the all-important chorus of frogs. The first person that we sort of come across is really a corpse. So at first, Dionysus the god is trying to barter his way down into hell or into the underworld by asking for passage with a corpse. The corpse fobs Dionysus off, and eventually he has to take up a journey with Charon. Now Charon is the ferryman, and he's really well known for being a bit of a malcontent, a bit of a grump. He's a really classic kind of civil servant, fed up sort of character. So Charon makes the passage quite difficult really because of Xanthias. So at last Dionysus and Xanthias meet the ferryman, and the ferryman's shouting for lots of different destinations. It's really similar to any sitcom that you might have watched where we see a descent into hell or a little vignette where the characters go down and meet the devil. We have all these sort of really horrifying different destinations pitched in a really mundane, everyday way. And Charon actually resolves that he's not going to let Xanthias go down into hell, or into the underworld I should say, with them, because Xanthias is a slave. So again we have these jokes coming through about Xanthias's failure to participate in Arginusae. You might remember from a previous video that Arginusae is the naval battle that the Athenians fought during the Peloponnesian Wars, and they recruited slaves to fight in that battle simply because they didn't have enough citizens. So really, slaves would participate just in order to become a citizen afterwards, and Xanthias has failed to do so. Charon won't let him on the ferry, so Xanthias has to run the long way round, and what we're left with is a scene where it's just Dionysus and the ferryman making their way down into the underworld together. So Dionysus, of all things, is expected to row. It's a really unglamorous, ungodlike journey that he makes, and we see lots of physical humour and comedy coming in when he gets onto the boat and he's a bit fat and he's upending it, and when he's rowing and he's really moaning about blisters on his hands. So everything's been taken from a very mythical, very elevated place to something that's really mundane and everyday. And a lot of the humour that you'll see in this scene, and that you can comment on if you are looking at frogs for exams, is the physical comedy that we see from Dionysus that we might not really be expecting from a god. If you think about gods in epic, they tend to have like much more majestic presence. They're not really subject to the kind of physical limitations of humans, and Aristophanes really punctures that for comic effect in this scene. So Dionysus makes his way down into the underworld, and he's actually not even very good at rowing. So Dionysus is the god who's been sent to save Athens and to save all things Athenian, but arguably can't really participate in the most Athenian of tasks, which is seafaring. The Athenians were known for having a really strong navy, and the fact that Dionysus isn't really good on the water doesn't reflect well on him, and is particularly funny for the Athenians who congregate to celebrate him every year. He's really bad at being Athenian, if that's a measure of what an Athenian is. We also start to meet the frog chorus. Now what's really unusual about frogs, and what's easy actually sometimes to forget, is there are two choruses. So we meet the frog chorus, after whom the play is named, and we also have a chorus of Dionysian initiates who come down into the underworld, or who are down in the underworld, and comment on quite a lot of the action and quite a lot of the agone, the argument scene between Aeschylus and Euripides as well. So the chorus of initiates actually have a much bigger part in frogs than the chorus of frogs do, but the frogs are so memorable that they give their name to the play. What's funny in the rowing scene is that the frogs come in making this bizarre noise.
What was that?
Which is apparently a frog sound. And they're actually in competition with Dionysus, and Dionysus is allowing himself to be riled up by these animals, which seems completely ridiculous. It also turns the kind of, really what can we say, foreboding river Styx into something really domestic and, you know, a marshland that's not really going to faze anybody at all. And this is possibly because the theatre of Dionysus was near marshland, so we could be looking at like the equivalent of, you know, crunching popcorn in the cinema. This idea that the frogs are local to the theatre building, and so really they're just part of the background noise that different actors would have to compete with when performing on stage. So it's a really nice private in-joke for people sat in the Theatre Dionysia to have something that probably bothers them through different performances brought onto centre stage and being made to be part of the comedy. To something really quite different and something really, you know, locally based that we can't quite recapture in the same way. When Dionysus arrives in the underworld, Xanthias finally runs round to meet him, having had to run the long way round. So Xanthias has exited through one of the Aecidoi or Paradoi and now meets Dionysus again at the end. So the competition between Dionysus and the frogs is a real head-to-head. It's not mediated by anyone and makes him look absolutely ridiculous. And when Xanthias gets back, Dionysus says, on the journey round, did you see lots of other sort of, you know, pickpockets and thieves and scoundrels? And Xanthias says, yeah, I did, and they're actually still here. So indicating the audience participation again and drawing the audience in to the action by making them the kind of, you know, unsavoury characters you'd want to really avoid normally and making them part of the action as well. What we're going to look at next time is what happens when Dionysus and Xanthias try to make their way through the underworld. So what is it like for Dionysus dressing as Heracles, and how much does that help or hinder him? So I hope that was a helpful video for you today. Do like, subscribe and share to keep the channel going, and take a look at my new website. I've finally put everything I'm doing into one place, whether that's the Redbubble artwork I keep publicising at the end of my videos or other freelance work that I also offer, so do be sure to take a look at that. Thanks!